Called him the Golden Boy, a man of majestic grace and untouchable honor. But behind the closed doors of luxury hotels, he traded his wife's sacred trust for a thrill called CPT. Now, the masks are coming off, the secrets are going viral, and the woman who loved him in silence is about to find her voice in the loudest way possible. The rise and fall of the Golden Boy. The penthouse suite of the Grand Ebony Hotel didn't just host parties, it swallowed morality. Inside the air was a thick cocktail of expensive wood, spilled vintage champagne, and the metallic tang of sweat. The bass from the speakers was a physical force vibrating the ice in the crystal tumblers. In the center of this chaos stood Tunde Adeyemi. To anyone watching, he looked like a king presiding over a private court. He was tall and slender, his majestic presence cutting through the blood movements of the drunken crowd. His face was a masterpiece of Nigerian heritage, a sharp, uncompromising jawline, a long pointed nose that gave him an air of nobility, and skin as smooth as polished mahogany. He leaned against a marble pillar, his elegant posture suggesting a man who had never known a day of true struggle. Another round, Golden Boy, a groomsman shouted, stumbling past. Tunde smiled, a glow, confident curve of the lips. Keep them coming. Tonight we don't count the bottles. As he spoke, a presence shifted beside him. Ruth didn't walk. She vibrated into a room. She was the polar opposite of the sister she shared a father with. Her figure-eight body was poured into a shimmering emerald green mini dress that left nothing to the imagination. Her white hips brushed against Tunde's thigh as she leaned in, the scent of her heavy, expensive perfume momentarily drowning out the room. "You look bored, Tunde," Ruth whispered, her voice a low, seductive rasp. She adjusted her long bone-straight wig, her bold red lipstick gleaming under the strobe lights. Tunde looked down at her. He knew this was a fire that could burn his entire life to the ground. But the thrill was a drug. "I'm never bored when you're in the room, Ruth." She laughed, a loud, confident sound, and dropped a manicured hand over his shoulder. Among the group, this was known as CPT, closed private time. To the world, they were family. Here, in the dim light of the penthouse, they were something far more dangerous. The bridesmaids and the groomsmen acted as a human shield, a circle of enablers who traded their silence for the reflected glow of Tunde's wealth. 30 miles away, the world was painted in shades of silver and silence. Mariam Adeyemi moved through the living room of their suburban home with the quiet grace of a prayer. She was tall and lean, her body possessing an innocent soft quality that required no highlights or contouring. Her skin glowed under the warm glow of the floor lamps, and her eyes, calm and deep, reflected a soul of peace. She wore a simple modest silk robe, elegant yet practical. To Miriam, this house was not just a building. It was a testament to the man she worshipped. She stopped by the window to water a pot of white orchids. "He's working so hard," she murmured to herself, a small, proud smile touching her lips. She picked up a framed photo from the side table. Tunde on their 1-year anniversary. He looked so regal, so honest. She felt a surge of gratitude. In a world of fleeting romances and broken promises, she had the Golden Boy. She had the man everyone envied. The silence of the house didn't feel lonely to her. It felt like a sanctuary she was guarding for him. She checked her phone. No new messages. He must be in the middle of the merger negotiations, she thought. I left the porch light on. She didn't check his GPS. She didn't call his friends. To Miriam, trust was a sacred covenant. She went to bed and lay on her side, leaving the left half of the bed empty, waiting for the weight of a man who was currently holding another woman's waist in a hotel 30 miles away. The memory of their wedding day often replayed in Miriam's mind like a holy film. The bridal suite had been filled with the scent of hairspray and expensive lilies. Miriam stood before the full-length mirror, a vision in lace and organza. She looked like hope made visible. "You're shaking, Miriam," a voice said from behind. It was Ruth. That day, Ruth had played the part of the doting stepsister to perfection. She wore the peach bridesmaid dress, though she had tailored it so tightly it hugged every curve of her hips and breast. She stepped forward to adjust Miriam's veils. In the reflection of the mirror, the contrast was jarring. Miriam, the soft, natural bride, and Ruth, the bold, seductive shadow behind her. I'm just, I'm so lucky, Ruth, Miriam whispered, her eyes misty. Tunde is everything I ever prayed for. Ruth's hand paused on the lace. Her expression shifted for a fraction of a second, a flicker of something sharp and hungry, before it smoothed back into a smile. He's a prize, all right, a real golden boy. At that same moment, in the vestry of the church, Tunde was checking his reflection. His best man, the leader of the CPT circle, handed him a glass of water. Tunde's phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Ruth. "Don't look too nervous when you see her. I've already made sure your gift is waiting at the hotel for tonight." Tunde smirked. He deleted the message, tucked the phone away, and adjusted his cuffs. He felt no guilt, only a heightened sense of ego. He could have the saint in the white dress, and he could keep the sinner in the green one. He was Tunde Adeyemi. He could have it all. As he walked down the aisle to the sound of the organ, the congregation rose in awe. He looked like the perfect man. He looked like the truth. The closed private time wasn't just a habit. It was a military grade. 2 weeks after the honeymoon, the first business trip was lodged. The location of a boutique villa in Asokoro, Abuja, hidden behind high gates and bougainvillea. Inside the world was different. There was no husbands or wives here, only participants. Tunde moved through the living room, his tailor's suit jacket discarded, his white shirt unbuttoned halfway to reveal his smooth mahogany chest. He held a glass of dark cognac, watching the ice swell. "The beauty of the CPT," one of the groomsmen Segun said, as he leaned back on a leather sofa, "is that it keeps the marriage healthy. You give the wife the golden boy version of yourself, and you give the villa the true version everyone wins." The bridesmaids, the same women who had helped Miriam pin her veil, were now lodging by the pool in designer swimwear. They were the gatekeepers. They knew that if Tunde fell, the whole circle fell. Ruth emerged from the glass sliding doors, her hook-up girl fashion on full display. She wore a sheer sarong over a bikini that highlighted her figure-eight frame, her long slender legs glistening with bronzing oil. She walked straight to Tunde, ignoring the others. "You're thinking about her again," Ruth teased, her bold makeup flawless even in the heat. She reached out, her fingers tracing the sharp line of his jaw. The quiet one, the one watering her flowers. Tunde didn't flinch. "Miriam is the foundation. Ruth, you are the skyscraper. I need both to have a view." "Then stop looking at your watch," she whispered. taking the glass from his hand and sipping it, leaving a red lipstick stain on the rim. In this house, time doesn't exist. There's no Miriam here, only us. They stayed there for 48 hours. They danced to Afro beats that shook the floorboards, drank until the sun rose over the Abuja hills, and exchanged secrets that would have shattered a dozen homes. Tunde felt invisible. He was the sun, and everyone in this room was a planet orbiting his gravity. 3 months later, the foundation and the skyscraper met under one roof. Miriam had spent the entire day preparing. The Adeyemi dining table was wrapped in white lining, scented with fresh lilies that filled the room with a sweet, heavy scent. She had cooked traditional jollof rice, succulent lamb, and moi moi, her movements gracefully and unhurried. She looked radiant in a modest floor-length Ankara dress that accentuated her tall, lean frame. When the doorbell rang, she greeted the inner circle with a warmth that was entirely genuine. "Ruth, you look striking," Miriam said, hugging her stepsister. Ruth was wearing a dress that was technically appropriate for dinner, but fit so tightly it felt like a provocation. Her long wig was styled in voluminous curls. "Thank you, sis. You know me. I can't help but stand out." The dinner was a master class in subtext. Tunde sat at the head of the table, the majestic host. He spoke of his latest business ventures, his voice deep and reassuring. "I don't know how he does it," Shegun said, gesturing to Tunde while winking at Ruth under the table. "The man works 20 hours a day. We have to drag him out for a drink just so he doesn't collapse." Miriam reached over and squeezed Tunde's hand. Her eyes were soft, filled with a terrifying level of trust. "I tell him all the time to rest, but he's so dedicated to our future." The table went silent for a heartbeat. Ruth picked up her wine glass, her eyes meeting Tunde's over the rim. The challenge in her gaze was clear. "Tell her. Tell her where we were last Tuesday." Tunde didn't blink. He smiled at his wife. "Everything I do is for us, Miriam." The bridesmaids laughed a little too loudly at a joke that wasn't funny. They were nervous. The contrast between Miriam's innocent beauty and the sordid reality of their Abuja trips was becoming a physical weight in the room. Miriam, sensing a shift, stood up. "Is the music too low?" she asked gently. "I'll turn it up. Tunde loves this playlist." She walked to the sound system, her posture elegant and calm, as her back was turned. Ruth leaned in and whispered to Tunde, "She's so sweet. It almost makes me want to tell her the truth. Almost." Tunde's expression hardened into a mask of cold gold. "Don't ruin the game, Ruth. You enjoy the prizes too much." The party ended. The friends departed in a flurry of fake hugs and promises to do this again soon. The house returned to its natural state of peace, but for the first time, the silence felt heavy to Tunde. He watched Miriam as she cleared the plate. She moved with a quiet dignity that made his chest tighten. For a second, the golden boy felt the tarnish. "You're quiet tonight, Tunde," Miriam said, wiping the mahogany table. "Just tired, love. The Lagos project is demanding." "You should sleep," she said, walking over to him. She placed her hands on his shoulder. Her touch was light and honest. "I put fresh sheets on. Go up. I'll be there after I finish the kitchen." Tunde nodded. He felt a sudden desperate need to check his other life. He went upstairs, but he didn't go to sleep. He sat on the edge of the bed, his phone glowing in the dark. New message from Ruth. "That was fun. She really has no idea Does she? See you at the usual spot on Friday. Don't be late, golden boy. He started to type a reply, something witty, something bold, but he heard Miriam's footsteps on the stairs. In a moment of rare agitation, he stood up to head to the bathroom to splash cold water on his face. He left the phone on the duvet, face up, unlocked. He was halfway through drying his face when he realized the silence from the bedroom wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the sound of a world ending. The bathroom was cold, the marble tiles biting into Tunde's bare feet. He stared at his reflection, the long pointed nose, the sharp jawline, the golden boy, Mark. The bathroom was cold, the marble tiles biting into Tunde's bare foot. He stared at his reflection, the long pointed nose, the sharp jawline, the golden boy mask he had worn so comfortably for years. He took a deep breath, composed his features, and reached for the door handle. When he stepped back into the room, the air had turned into ice. Miriam was sitting on the edge of the bed. She wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. She was holding his phone in both hands, her thumbs frozen over the screen. The blue light from the device cast a ghostly pallor over her soft, innocent features, making her look like a statue of a saint carved from grief. Miriam. Tunde's voice was a low, cautious rumble. He didn't move. He used his height, his majestic presence, to try and command the space, but for the first time, it didn't work. She didn't look up. Her voice was a raged whisper. It sounded like dry leaves skittering on pavement. Friday at the usual spots? Don't be late, golden boy. Tunde's heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. Miriam, it's just a joke. You know how Ruth is. She's playful. It's just banter between family. Finally, Miriam looked up. The calm eyes he had praised for years were now wide and bloodshot, filled with a sudden sharp clarity that stripped him bare. I scrolled up Tunde. I didn't want to. I kept telling myself to stop, that I was imagining things, but I kept scrolling. She stood up, her tall, lean frame trembling. She began to read, her voice gaining a haunting rhythmic strength. Abuja, June 14th. You told me you were at a conference. Here is a photo of you and Ruth in a bathtub. Lagos, August 3rd. You said your car broke down. Here is a video of you spraying money on her while the bridesmaids cheer. Miriam, listen to me. No, she cut him off. The world a cheap crack in the silent room. I listened to your silence for 3 years. I listened to your excuses. I listened to the way you praised my trust while you were laughing at my stupidity. She threw the phone on the bed. It bounced. The screen still lit with a photo of Ruth. Bold makeup, seductive smile, leaning into Tunde's chest in a way that screamed possession. It wasn't just a mistake, Miriam whispered, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. It was a lifestyle. You had a protocol. You had a name for it. CPT, closed private time. She looked at him with a loathing, so pure it made him flinch. You turned my wedding into a lie. You turned my home into a waiting room for your sins. Tunde felt the desperate urge to fix it, to use the charm that he had always opened doors for him. He stepped forward, reaching out to touch her shoulder with his slender, elegant hands. Miriam, I love you. That life in the hotels, that was just a release. It meant nothing. You are my wife. You are the woman I respect. Miriam recoiled as if his touch was a brand. Respect? You don't know what the word means. You respect the image of being a good husband. You respect the applause you get for being the golden boy. But you don't respect me. You don't even see me. She walked to the closet and pulled out a small suitcase. She didn't grab her expensive gowns or her jewelry. She grabbed her basic necessities. Her movements frantic yet focused. "Where are you going?" Tunde asked, his confidence finally crumbling. "It's 3 in the morning. Let's talk about this tomorrow." "There is no tomorrow for us," she said, her voice dropping to a terrifying calming level. "Tomorrow, the world finds out who you really are. Tomorrow, Ruth finds out that her thrill just lost its funding. And tomorrow, I start the process of scrubbing your name off my life." She stopped at the door, her graceful posture rigid. She looked back at the room she had decorated with love, the room that smelled of the lilies she had watered with devotion. "You know what the worst part is, Tunde?" she asked. "I didn't just trust you. I believed in you. I thought you were the best of us." "I can be that man again," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "You never were that man," she replied. "You were just a very good actor." She turned and walked away. He heard her footsteps on the stairs, the same stairs she had climbed an hour ago to offer him peace. He heard the front door click shut. Tunde stood alone in the center of the room. He picked up his phone. A new notification had popped up. It was from the groomsmen group chat. "Shegun, Tunde, did you see Ruth's latest post? She's tagging the hotel. Careful, golden boy. The walls have ears." Tunde looked at the phone, then at the empty doorway, the silence of the house, which Miriam had once guarded like a sanctuary, now felt like a tomb. The majestic, handsome man in the mirror was gone. In his place was a hollow shell, holding a glowing screen that documented his own destruction. The explosion didn't happen with a bang. It happened with a ping. At 4 a.m., while Tunde was paralyzed in his darkened living room, the first screenshot hit the internet. Miriam hadn't just walked out. She had quietly, methodically forwarded the most damning evidence to a trusted friend, a journalist who had always sensed the wrath behind Tunde's golden exterior. The images were undeniable. Tunde, the majestic pillar of society, caught in the grainy, new-lit reality of the CPT villas. The most viral image was a side-by-side comparison. On the left, Miriam in her innocent white wedding gown. On the right, Ruth in her sheer hook-up fashion, draped over Tunde at a poolside bar just 2 weeks after the wedding. The bridesmaids and groomsmen scrambled. The group chat that once boasted about close private time was now a graveyard of "user has left the chat" notifications. They were all afraid of the splash damage. Ruth, fueled by a mixture of panic and her usual bold confidence, made a fatal mistake. Instead of staying quiet, she posted a long rambling video. Her long wig was slightly messy, but her bold makeup was still in place. "People don't understand the pressure Tunde was under," she told her followers, her voice trembling with a fake sort of victimhood. Miriam was too cold, too perfect. He needed someone who understood his fire. It wasn't a betrayal, it was a soul connection. The internet didn't just disagree, it revolted. The golden boy was now being called the gilded fraud. Every brand deal Tunde had signed, every board of directors he sat on, and every family friend who had once defended him began to vanish. The day of the preliminary divorce hearing was stiflingly hot. The courthouse was a swarm of reporters and curious onlookers. Tunde arrived first. He looked diminished. His slender frame seemed brittle, and his sharp jawline was covered in the shadow of unkempt beard. The majestic presence was gone, replaced by the hunched shoulders of a man who knew he was being watched for all the wrong reasons. Then came Ruth. She walked through the courthouse halls with her head high, wearing a bodycon dress that was entirely inappropriate for a court of law. She still moved with a seductive confidence, but it felt hollow, like a performance for an audience that had already left. Finally, Miriam appeared. The crowd was silent. She was the definition of unbroken. She wore a tailored cream-colored power suit that accentuated her tall, graceful frame. Her skin was glowing, and her calm eyes held a steady, lethal focus. She didn't look like a victim. She looked like an executioner. In the narrow corridor leading to the courtroom, the three of them collided. Tunde tried to speak, but the words died in his throat. Ruth, however, couldn't help herself. She stepped into Miriam's path. "Miriam, wait," Ruth said, her voice dripping with a forced sugary empathy. "You have to understand. It wasn't supposed to hurt you. I was just trying to give him what you couldn't. Men like Tunde, they have needs. They have needs that a woman like you." The sound of a slap echoed off the marble walls like a gunshot. The force of it sent Ruth's head snapping to the side, her long wig shifting. The hallway went dead silent. Ruth gasped, clenching her burning cheek, her eyes wide with shock. "That," Miriam said, her voice low and terrifyingly steady, "was for the 3 years you spent eating at my table while planning my destruction." Ruth's face contorted. "You think you're so much better than—" The second slap was harder than the first. It caught Ruth on the other cheek, staggering her backward until she hit the wall. A thin trail of bold red lipstick smeared across her face. "And that," Miriam whispered, leading in so close that Ruth flinched, "is for the sisterly love I wasted on a sneak. Don't ever speak my name again. To you, I am a stranger. To the court, you are an evidence. Now get out of my way." Ruth collapsed into tears, her seductive presence dissolving into a pathetic heap. Tunde stood frozen, watching the woman he thought was soft and innocent, commanding the room with a power he had never possessed. Inside the courtroom, the majesty of Tunde Adeyemi was dismantled piece by piece. The evidence was a mountain of shame. The hotel receipts paid from joint accounts, the videos of the CPT parties, the testimonies from friends who were now more than happy to throw Tunde under the bus to save their own reputations. Miriam sat at the plaintiff's table, her posture elegant and her expression unreadable. She didn't cry when the judge read the details of the betrayals. She didn't look at Tunde when he took the stand to offer a weak, stumbling apology about the pressures of success and the thrill of the chase. "Mr. Adeyemi," the judge said, peering over his glasses, "you speak of thrill as if it were a legitimate excuse for the systematic emotional abuse of your wife. You did not just cheat. You curated a secondary life and used your status to silence those who knew. You are not a victim of your own success. You are the architect of your own ruin." The judgment was swift and devastating. The assets were divided in a way that left Tunde's golden boy lifestyle in tatters. The house, the sanctuary Miriam had guarded, was hers. The majority of the liquid assets, hers. But more importantly, the dignity of the truth was hers. As they walked out of the courtroom, Tunde tried one last time to reach her. "Miriam, please, I have something left. My name is ruined. My career is over. Miriam stood, Miriam stood at the top of the courthouse steps. The sunlight hit her, making her look like a vision of justice. She looked down at him, her refined features set a mask of pity. You have exactly what you wanted, Tunde, she said calmly. You have your thrill, you have your secrets, and you have the friends who helped you keep them. She looked at Ruth, who was being escorted out by a lawyer, her face swollen and her bold makeup ruined by tears. Then she looked back at Tunde. I'm going to go home now, Miriam said. I'm going to water my flowers. And for the first time in 3 years, I won't be waiting for a man who doesn't exist. She walked, she turned and walked down the steps, her tall, lean silhouette moving with a grace that Tunde realized he never truly deserved. He stood at the top of the stairs, a man carved for admiration, finally realizing that the only person whose admiration mattered was the one who had traded for a weekend in a hotel. The golden boy was gone. The woman who trusted him was finally free.